Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of Creative Contact. I'm your host, Orion. Thank you so much for tuning in. You could be anywhere in the world, but you're here with me, and I appreciate that. Welcome to my new apartment. This is pretty much the same apartment complex, but my landlord gave me the boot, y'all. Somebody booked the Airbnb in my old spot, so I got kicked out, but it's cool. It's a little bit brighter, a little bit different. It has this cool little like nook. You can't see it, but so I have like these little tchotchkes and things placed around so I can post up my computer and my camera here, and it's nice. It's hot as the mother load, so if I end up sweating, I have a little towel here because yeah, it is super hot. So I'm actually running the AC, so if the audio is whack, I apologize, but Malaysia is next level. It's definitely next level. I thought I could handle it, and I'm handling it-ish, but I am always drenched. So there's a nice little visual image for you to start this off. So y'all, here's the deal. I wrote down a couple things I want to talk to you about today, but this is going to be a pretty quick and dirty episode. Little Kia's life update. It's officially this last week on Tuesday, recording this on a Saturday, last Tuesday, 5 years abroad. 5 years, which is insane to me that I've been out here for 5 years, that it was just when I was in Philly, booked one-way ticket, and it feels like, I feel like my life, I feel like I've lived multiple lives, but definitely two lives. It was like life before Nomad and life after Nomad. It's almost like the first 27 years of my life were kind of a warm-up, and I feel like my life actually started 5 years ago. And so I'm gonna do like a full breakdown on everything I've learned. We'll really jump into some of those gems, but I have an idea kind of stirring in the back of the dome of what I want that video to be and where I want it to be, and so I'm gonna just keep that kind of under wraps for now. I'm not gonna dive into all the particulars just yet, but know that that's coming, kind of like a 5-year breakdown at some point. Right now, I just want to talk to you about kind of what's been going on, where I'm at, and if I can get your help. I need a little bit of help because I feel like I'm kind of at a roadblock mentally, and I can't seem to get out of it. And so I think that just getting y'all's opinion might be actually really helpful, because I'm at a crossroads. I feel like I'm at the brink of a breakthrough, and it kind of the strange crossroads in my life. And that's so I want to talk to you about that, as well as kind of what I've been up to, where I'm at, and kind of what's next for the kid. So we'll jump into kind of, I think the best place to start this off, and where I'll pitch this to you, is when it comes to love. Because I'm a hopeless romantic, so obviously this is something I think about a lot. But it's been on my mind a lot recently that I read that I didn't read anything. I don't want to lie to you. I listened to this podcast the other day on population collapse, which was fascinating, because right now, especially coming from India, it's like, oh my God, we're overpopulated, and the environment and the stress and the blah, blah, blah. But if you look at the data, like political, what assumptions aside, environmental, blah, 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 like the population is collapsing. And it's something that's it's like, if you look at the trajectory out, it's something that happens so slowly, day by day, we don't realize it. But if you look at it like 30 days out from how many few people are having kids these days, it's pretty crazy. So we're gonna end up with a generation of a bunch of old folks with nobody to take care of them. And then it also affects like the workforce and the whole country, the whole world pretty much too, because this is happening everywhere. Just kind of becomes Detroit, where it's like, everybody leaves, and then the city just kind of starts to kind of like, people can't keep the lights on, and the city kind of just starts to like eat itself. So it's really interesting just thinking about kids. And obviously, as a man coming from this with a vasectomy, thinking about having kids myself. And because all my friends, I think I'm in this phase that all my friends are having kids, all my friends are getting married, that I was like on the brink of just like pulling the trigger and moving to Portugal and just being like, screw this MFA dream, I'm just gonna move to Portugal and go find a wifey. Because I'm not getting any younger. I'm not sure if you knew this, but today's the youngest I'm ever gonna be. And I want to have a partner. Still wishy-washy on the kids part, even though our population's collapsing, but I don't have a big enough soul to really care that much about other people that I feel like I should have a kid. But on that regard, like aside from kids, I definitely want a partner. And I realized that if I don't, it's something that I actually have to put that conscious effort into. If I want to find a partner, if I want to start dating, I got to do that. In order to do that, I need to be somewhere that I want to settle down for longer term. And I really love Latin America. I'm not sure if I'd want to do that though, as much as I love Rio and in Rio, just because it can be a little dangerous. I'm not sure if it's, maybe Mexico. I could see myself doing it there. In the States, I have a hard time seeing myself long-term in the States because I don't like to drive, which sounds really strange. It's like because the driving is going to keep me from it, but I just really don't like driving. I don't like having a car. I like being able to walk around or take a train. And so that kind of limits me a lot to places. Certain cities like Chicago I could do as well, but like a New York, Philly, I could do it relatively well. I don't think there's a ton of cities on the West Coast I could do it. But especially just the culture of the States, I'm not sure if it's a place that I would want to settle up long term. But there are these kind of moving targets that are all kind of like, this is what I need your help with. That's why I wanted to start with love. Is because there are these moving targets that I'm trying to wrangle at the same time. And some of them have to get cut. And I'm trying to figure through my workout through exercises, not like boxing exercises, but like written exercises, to try to figure out which of these, how to manage this in a way that I don't think I can have my cake and eat it too. And so these are the main things. I'll throw them at you. You can tell me kind of what you think, what are the blind spots that I have here, and you can kind of poke holes in my theory. Porfa. So the things that matter to me in this life, obviously it's not fashion. It's family, mom and dad and my bro. My bro and his fiance are going to be around a while, fingers crossed. So I'm not too worried about them. We'll have a full life together, and hopefully they have a dog that I can be an uncle to, or kids I can be an uncle to. I'll get that sorted. For me, I'm most worried about my mom and my dad because my dad's, he's getting up there. Like, he looks good. Pop look good. Listen, Pops, I don't know what he's just in the sun. He's working. Pops looks good. He's 73, 74, mid-70s now, which is insane to think. So let's say I've got 10 more years with Pops. That's insane. So we'll say I'll be around 40 when it's Pops' time to peace out. So I've got 10 more years with Pops. Mom is my age plus 30. So she's what, 30? So she's 61, 62. So let's pretend it didn't take me that long to do that mental math. So I want to spend as much time with them as possible. Which is why every year I go home for a month, but I'm realizing that as I've come to this 5-year traveling extravaganza, I've squeezed most of the juice out of this lemon for this stage of my life where I need a break from it, which sounds weird, but I need a place to like post up because places I've been disillusioned. I want to feel like really excited to travel again. And I do feel that to certain places, like Turkey and, in Istanbul and Turkey and other places, there's so many, in last place in Europe, but I want to be really jonesing to go traveling again, where right now I feel like what I'm really missing is that like piece of community and companionship. So I really want to spend that time with mom and dad. Living outside the States has changed my perspective on living with mom and dad. I think coming from the States, being kicked out at 18, it's almost seen as like a failure when you go, if you're an adult and you have to go home and live with your folks again. It's like, oh my God, you messed up. And I still feel a little bit of that kind of judgment, maybe a little bit of that chip on my shoulder. If I'm like, oh my God, am I moving back to be with mom and dad? I don't have my own place. But being in these other countries, I'm seeing how much that kind of just makes sense. That oftentimes, if family is more important in these other cultures, and often it is than in the States and some of these other Western countries, it makes sense that like you have, as your folks get older, you have another, your kids are there to take care of them. And then as there are grandkids, then those grandparents can help take care of the grandkids. So you almost have like a built-in babysitter. And then you also have the wisdom of the elderly in the home as well. A lot of times in like Latin American cultures, these Asian cultures, like the grandma is the matriarch. Like grandma has the gems. Grandma's the one that like has the recipes. She knows the family history. She knows how to like mix the little tinctures and shit when you get a cold. Like grandma's the boss. Like grandma's the OG. And so you don't make sense to kind of live with her, keep her in the house, and the grandkids are there. She can bestow the wisdom, parents, blah, blah, blah. in the States, the young folks like, get out of here, go be independent, pull yourself up by your bootstraps and make a lot of money, be successful. And then our old folks too, like we just put as soon as you can't work anymore, we're just going to shaft you in the nursing home, like go die alone over there with other old people because you smell. And that just like the older I get now and spending time outside the States, like I realize how much I really want to spend more time with my folks. And so it's kind of the hardest part of it, this whole thing, is that they're back in this small town I grew up in upstate New York. And I just don't see myself like settling down there, or like, it's hard for me, one, because the winters are tough because your boy's kind of a little bitch now, but it's also just like the culture, like upstate New York culture just isn't exactly my vibe. And so it's this difficult trade-off of like wanting to spend that time with mom and dad, but not really wanting to be where they are. But obviously they aren't going to be moving or leaving that mountaintop. So that's kind of a trade-off. But again, I'm willing to take that L and say, I'm going to move with mom and dad. The difference is though, when I'm with mom and dad up on that mountaintop, like the rest of life is on hold. Like, it's not like there are career opportunities like for me up there doing, I'm like building online and stuff, but it's not like I'm going to like bump into like somebody, whatever. You know what I'm saying? It's also for me thinking about what type of partner do I want to have, and in some of these other cultures, like I'm not sure if I'm just gonna, there's not like a lot of opportunities either for me up there to like meet a partner when you live up in the log cabin on the top of a mountain. And so these kind of important pieces of my life are a bit on hold while I'm up there. And so I feel a little bit torn between, I feel like the place that I in my heart that I feel like is calling to me, in terms of a place that I could really see myself like settling down, finding a partner, raising a family, is honestly in Europe, like Spain, maybe Portugal. There's something about Europe, the last time I was there, that just, the infrastructure blew my mind. I like the way that I just like the quality of life is high. Like there's pieces about Europe that I really like. I love that there's all these other countries around. It makes it easy. You hop on a train. A lot of those cities, it's easy to get around on bike or walking or public transport. I feel like Europe is kind of my like next level, the place that I really want to go and like actually post up and like on my wife quest and like find a partner, start dating, settling in. That's a really loud motorbike. And so there's this part of me that like wants to go to Europe, and I shout out to my buddy Ronnie and Diana, who I've been talking to. They have an amazing business. Check it out. It's all about like Canva. They do a bunch of stuff. Ron D, Canva. Y'all know who you are. Shout them out. But they offered me a job with them because they were building out this kind of creator community. So I had a job potentially, and they live in Barcelona. And so I've been thinking about like, man, I could just like scrap it, go live with them in Barcelona, work on this, building this kind of their online empire with them, live in Portugal, have that chapter like right now, like go do it. But working for their company, it's amazing, it's an incredible opportunity, but I'm also so focused still on my own career of writing, building this channel, that this is really my true love. Like I think I could do some really rad work for them, and maybe I still will potentially in the future. But right now, like my main focus is building my own career and things. And so that's another piece of it too, is kind of, I'm at this shift in my life where I just left kind of my old life, old identity, and I'm kind of rebuilding. And so it's not like I'm at this like super solid career point, which I think would be different. I feel like I'm like, there are like these those are kind of like some of the big moving parts for me, or it's like career, my own partner and life and my own little family, and then my mom and dad. And the way that those kind of three things interplay and interchange with each other, and that time I feel like is kind of working against me in that regard, although I'm sure that's how everybody feels. But that it's like, do I go, so I'm pursuing an MFA right now just because I'm really loving writing. I've been writing my ass off. I have this little collection of short stories that I'm putting together. I don't know where it's supposed to go. Right now I'm just having it hopefully get me into an MFA program. But let's say an MFA program's 3 years. Let's say I'm able to get in, fingers crossed. I get in, so I get out and I'm going to be 36. And then it's like, now I'm starting with like a degree that doesn't really offer any like guaranteed jobs. And so I'm like starting kind of where I am right now, but it's just 3 years down the line. I'll have obviously honed the skill, enjoyed my time there, really become a better writer. But it's still, I'm not really making progress on this like spend time with family or like spending time finding wifey, creating my own family piece. I'm just kind of like delaying those out 3 years farther. And so there's obviously sacrifice that could be made. I could settle down in like an upstate New York and like just be close to mom and dad for the next decade. But that doesn't feel right. And so what I'm thinking is, what I've kind of been toying with plans is, I'm in a couple months about to go home for my brother's wedding. I'm going to shoot another documentary I've planned with my folks. And then I'm probably going to bounce for the winter because, like I said, the winters are brutal for me. And go post up somewhere warm and like really knock out these MFA applications, because I'm going to apply to like 15 schools. I'm going to take this as like, this is my shot. I'm going for it. I'm applying like they're fully funded, really competitive schools. They like hundreds of people apply, like they accept 3. So I'm just like shooting my shot. I'm going all out. I'm going to invest a couple of G's into this, and just like, I've got some coaches already working with me on my writing, and just like, I'm going in and just doing the best I can do. If I get in, awesome. We'll look at the offers then. If not, then I'm like, screw it. Then I'm actually going to go see if I can find some sort of remote job, part-time job, and bounce and go to Europe. But my point being is, after the winter, don't quote me on it, but I'm thinking I'm going to spend a lot of this fall with my folks, and then a lot of next year, like in the summer, I'll go home and spend my summer with the folks. And there's also this part of me at the same time that's like, I could, because I just got rockstar parents, and if I can kind of put my ego aside a little bit and be okay living in my childhood bedroom and just living on the mountaintop with the folks, like I could build out this dream of like trying to be a writer, making these YouTube videos, building, my business, shooting content. I could just move back in with mom and dad, because I have a nice little nest egg right now. And it's not enough to like live in New York for a year. But if I post up with mom and dad, like I could invest more of this money into the business, kind of like I am out here, because rent out here is super cheap and life out here is super cheap. But I love Asia. It's just hard for me to be away from my folks, and just the phone calls and stuff. Like I feel like Latin America and Europe, it's easy. New York is like a 6-hour flight or a 4-hour flight, depending on where you're at. A couple $100 back, just more often within the next 10 years. Asia will be here whenever my folks, move on to the next life. And so, what I've been thinking is like, the reason I keep looking is because I'm checking the time. I've got a call coming up in 10 minutes, so I got to wrap it up. Is like, what type of a job could I have? And so right now, just thinking about how I could monetize these things, where I love the writing. I'm not pretending like I'm going to make it as a writer. It could be rad though. Like, I don't know how I could finesse this, but maybe I'm just like a middling writer that like makes 40 grand a year and just enjoys writing and does that. And like, that could work. It's not like I need a shitload of money, but it would be nice to have. Before, when I was going to be a rock star, money was like, I was like, okay, I'll make it, and then money's taken care of. So when my dad pieces out, like when I got to take care of Mom Dukes, I was like, oh, Mom, I'll be a millionaire. It's no problem. I'll set it up. It's good. Where now I'm like, dude, like I need to start kind of getting my shit together, because it's going to be me and Ma Dukes here before I know it. And I want to make sure that I'm financially support, I can financially support her. And so I got to, grow up and make that a thing at some point, even if I want a spouse and a kid too, like, I got to start kind of making money, and making 30 grand a year, being an adjunct professor isn't exactly like what I had in mind. And so I'm kind of just at this weird place where I feel like YouTube money, if I could get my YouTube shit cracking, obviously there's a lot there, and I feel like I could kill that. And I feel like kind of I'm in this like I'm playing between two different worlds, between like I'm into like the self-development, like Tim Ferriss optimizer content. You see my content that I love. I'm super into that. I'm also into this, like these short stories, poems. And if you see my poetry, these little videos I post, they're cool and emotional. And I like the poetry, but I've switched recently from really loving poetry to only kind of liking it. I realize I love writing poetry. I don't love studying poetry. It gets a little bit too like highfalutin for me. Like I'm a pretty simple dude. And so there's kind of this like, I don't know, it's almost a little too artsy for me sometimes. Whereas I love short stories and just honestly just memoir story in general. And so there's a part of me that's been toying with like, I've really been enjoying writing these short stories, even though they're more of like, they have like a humorous element, like a humorous bent, but it doesn't like fit in with like my YouTube stuff that I'm building. So I just feel like I'm kind of like torn between these different things. But that was the whole point of this year, is to experiment, right? Like if I'm scrapping the music identity, it's like where does Kia land after this? And so obviously I'd love something, so like YouTube we could get cracking. Maybe I could do start some sort of a thing with a podcast or produce a podcast for another company, which is what my buddy Ronnie offered me to do. Something along those lines, but I'm kind of just like bumping up against like what other kind of work or jobs are there that I could do. I still think maybe, depending on how the things go with the MFA, I might try to get like a PhD and be a professor. I don't know if I want to be in academia that much, but that I like, when I think about the people I want to hang out with, it's like professors and scientists and podcasters. It's like, you know, that sort of like quest for knowledge and curiosity and reading and writing that I just really love. And so I'm just not exactly sure how to balance these things. And then obviously the longer I wait, the harder it is to, you know, have kids and do the partner thing too. But I realized that the family piece is the one that's like, if I take a step back, this is the one that's like the most time sensitive. Like, I'm cool being alone. I get lonely sometimes, but for the most part, I love being alone. I love writing, I love working. The partner thing, unfortunate as it is, this is like, it's almost like me having kids and a family is the one that I'll probably delay the most. And I think a lot of people do, and that's why this whole population collapse thing is like happening. But the career piece too is the one that that's the easiest for me to kind of like go all in on. But I realized that like being successful in career like doesn't paper over. You know, you can't get your parents back just because you write a #1 bestseller or something. And so I also don't love that publishing world either. It's kind of crazy. So I've been kind of toying with like, what if I just write short stories and like self-publish them and just hustle it the same way that I have been, instead of like trying to get and be a published author. What if I just hustle it differently and like release one a week or one a month and like build this online, you know, fan base for the writing without needing a major publisher or something, and then leverage that audience down the line, maybe into some sort of a book, something. But like that publishing world, I'm not drawn to the clout of it. Like, I don't need to be published by Penguin or something, you know. Same with the MFAs, like these programs, I don't really, honestly, don't tell them MFA programs, I don't really care where I go. I just want someone to pay for me to write. Like, I'm not attached. It doesn't have to be an Ivy League name. I used to be much more into that of like kind of clout chasey with names and universities and where I went. I'm like, I could be fucking West Virginia, dude. Like, just pay me to write and I'm good. Like, so I think a part of me feels the same way about getting published, whether it's articles, whether it's poems, whether like, I'm not like craving for that like stamp of approval from like a big 5 publishing company. I just want to get my shit out there. I want people to read it. So that might be able to go to do that. But I also think somehow I just kind of got that indie spirit. Like maybe it's the play is like building the online following through the short stories and stuff first. But I know blogs are dead. So it's like, how the fuck do I do it? So I've just got all these things kind of like working around in my mind. But that's kind of where I'm at right now. I'm thinking Europe to live, settle down, wife quest, make that happen someday. A lot of next year and probably the end of this year, spend with mom and dad, really getting in that time, you know, actions aligning with words, like spending time with mom and dad on the mountaintop, eating food, helping them in the garden, just like hanging out, really investing time with mom and dad. And then with the career, that's like the most kind of gray area of it is like, I just don't know what the fuck I'm doing. I just love making these videos and I really love these stories. I can't wait for you guys to read them. I've been sending them to friends who tell me that they're trash, which is good inspiration for me to really keep writing and to make sure that they're better. But there could be something there too. Like the way that I can pour myself into the work of the writing feels very similar to the music. And so that's a really good sign to me that I'm like equally as obsessed with it. Like I was even looking at like screenwriting. I feel like could be cool too. So who knows? What I'm saying is, y'all, your boy's a little lost. I got these kind of big life questions and pieces coming into play. Family, you know, parents, my spouse and partner, with location and career. How do you guys see these kind of things playing out in your own life? I'd be curious what you think for your boy. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'm going to wrap this up right now because I got to go bounce on a call, but appreciate you all hearing me blabber on. Life has been good in terms of lifestyles. Life has been good. I've been kicking with a little shorty out here, which has been cool. I've been writing like a madman for pretty much every day, maybe 6 to 8 hours a day, working on these short story collection. Has been rad, and I've been really reading a lot too, trying to read more and read more like classics, memoir, personal essay type stuff to help me kind of get into the zone, and researching the shit out of these MFA programs too, because I think that could be a really cool opportunity. And then obviously getting fit. I'm trying to get in the best shape of my life for no apparent reason, so I'm trying to get shredded. Have been we can talk about diet and stuff another time if you want, but have been really trying to like get super dialed in on the health stuff, and it's been good. It's tough. I'm hungry a lot, but we starting to get some ab action, so we get in there. I'm gonna keep boxing. Threw my shoulder out the other day, shadow boxing. It is what it is. Thank you guys for tuning in as always, and I'll check you on the next one. Help me out. Help me with some life advice. I need it. You the bomb. Peace.